Having a look again now at when there were black swan events, how did those land up impacting, the S&P 500, for example? And you have a look there on the global financial crisis. It lasted 1,022 days, and the S&P 500 dropped by 56.8%. The COVID-19 one on the right, yes, we haven't had the full impact because this figure came, sort of not long after COVID started. But down to the right where you see in highlighted areas is that to a large extent, Wall Street has very much reacted quite quickly and grown quite a lot. There's a dip once there's a pandemic or an epidemic like MERS or SARS or Ebola, but then it very quickly picks up again. And I think what we're seeing in the world of, I'm going to show you the next slide. By the way, I'll share the slide deck with you guys, so you don't need to be trying to screw your eyes up and looking at all these figures. But on the next slide, we'll see to a large extent that and you'll see that this slide actually starts changing. So at the moment, it was in red. That was the 2020 economic status. Now 2021 and now into 2022, it'll go back to the red again as I'm talking here. But as we can see in 2020, virtually every single country was in negative. But heading into 2021, we're seeing a lot more greens, a lot of really good growth rates, and 2022 even better. And this was prior to, say, for example, in the USA, where I think it was that 1.8 trillion stimulus package was put together, because that's what to a large extent is also helping the economies grow again, is that, there's all these stimuluses that are going in, and it's now a good opportunity, if you're in the right industry, to be able to really take advantage. But one of the key points about today's session is, don't sit back and think just because I was successful prior to COVID-19 that I'm automatically going to be successful afterwards. The world has changed radically, and the markets that are starting to boom are growing radically, as are those that are starting to drop. So, I mean, I'm talking to you through Zoom today. We saw that very soon after COVID-19 really started hitting home. I mean, Zoom's, their worth just quadrupled overnight type of thing. And so that's one of the reasons that we're talking today, is to talk about how do we get ready for that to a large extent. So these are some of the winners and losers that we're seeing happening, in the Euro stock. Again, this is S&P 500, and this was in the 2020, towards the end of 2020, this came about. And we look at companies like Shopify, up 178%, the internet retail, so Pinduoduo, up 331%, the basic materials doing really well, freight and logistics, because now we're starting to really bring this global economy together a lot more, semiconductors. But to a large extent, you're starting to see the losers there as well: oil and gas, diversified banks, real estate, airlines, and aerospace. So again, we're looking at the companies that are starting to do a lot better, are very much those that are in the IT space, online shopping, freight and logistics, and obviously, with semiconductors, it's those that are helping in the IT space, etc. So these are the types of industries that are starting to do well. And it's really just, I'm going to go one more slide and then talk a little bit more about this. So again, having a look at the growth over a number of years, the top 6 industries, again, semiconductors, pharmaceuticals, personal product, software, have grown by up to 275, plus 275 on their market valuation. Whereas the bottom 6 industries, which we're looking at, things like insurance and banks and diversified financials, utilities, energies, have gone down by 373%. So we really, if you take a look at where these markets are going, you've got to sit back as an organization and say, are we sitting in the right in the right sphere? Are we operating in the right markets? one of the things that I saw on I think it was on CNN soon after COVID-19 kicked into place. And this is about a business that very quickly adapted and virtually transformed. Well, actually did transform the way they did business. Was actually a brewery somewhere in the USA. So up until then, they had been brewing, their normal beers and the like products, but very quickly saw that there was an opportunity to start using that particular production line for disinfectants, sanitizers, etc. So instead of now brewing the beer, they actually started using that same capability with alcohol in it to start doing the sanitizers. And obviously they will have done really well because they're able to quickly adapt. And that's one of the parts about one of the big things about Agile as a whole, but I'm going to talk more about business agility today, is that opportunity to really, anticipate and adapt to what's happening in your marketplaces.